Have you ever been in a room full of people, yet felt completely invisible? Imagine sitting at a dinner table, where everyone is laughing, talking, and connecting, but your voice doesn't matter, your presence goes unnoticed, and your value is ignored. That sting, that hollow silence, is what it feels like to be unappreciated. And sadly, it's something most of us go through without even realizing how deeply it eats away at our self-worth. The truth is, many people are more afraid of being alone than of being mistreated. We cling to friendships that drain us, relationships that suffocate us, or jobs that undervalue us, all because we've been programmed to believe that being surrounded by others, no matter how toxic, is better than standing on our own. But here's the shocking reality: being unappreciated is far lonelier than being alone. Think about it. When your efforts are overlooked, when your kindness is taken for granted, and when your loyalty is seen as nothing more than a duty, you start shrinking. You begin to question yourself: am I not good enough? Do I not matter? Why can't they see me? And little by little, without even realizing it, you silence your own voice just to keep the peace. But here's the part we avoid admitting to ourselves: staying in such situations doesn't save us from loneliness, it traps us in it. Being surrounded by people who don't see your worth doesn't fill your soul, it starves it. The laughter becomes noise, the conversations become hollow, and the connections feel fake. Deep down, you realize you're alone anyway, only now, you're also exhausted, drained, and disrespected. The truth we need to face is this: walking away from people who don't value us is not weakness, it's strength. Choosing solitude over constant neglect is not giving up, it's taking back control. Being alone is not something to fear, it's something to embrace when the alternative is living a life where you're invisible. Because here's the reality: the pain of being unappreciated cuts deeper than the silence of solitude. And when you truly understand this, you unlock the courage to step away, to stand tall, and to finally say, I would rather be alone than be treated like I don't matter. Emma was the kind of person everyone relied on but rarely acknowledged. She was dependable, selfless, and always willing to go the extra mile. To her friends, she was the one who picked up the phone at 2 a.m., no matter how tired she was. To her family, she was the one who sacrificed her own needs so others could be comfortable. At work, she was the employee who quietly took on more tasks without ever demanding recognition. On the outside, people thought she had it all together: the strong one, the caring one, the reliable one. But on the inside, Emma was crumbling. Her life felt like a performance where she was applauded for showing up, but nobody truly saw her heart. She gave and gave, yet when it was her turn to need help, silence filled the room. Her days blended into each other: wake up, take care of others, push aside her own desires, go to bed, repeat. She rarely paused to ask herself how she was feeling, because the truth scared her. If she admitted her emptiness, she would have to confront an even scarier question: am I only valuable when I'm useful to others? The most painful part wasn't the workload, the favors, or even the sacrifices. It was the lack of appreciation. Emma didn't expect grand gestures or constant praise, just a simple acknowledgement, a thank you, a moment where someone truly saw her effort. But it never came. The people she poured her soul into treated her care like an obligation rather than a gift. She convinced herself that this was normal. She told herself, at least they need me. At least I'm not alone. But the truth was, she was lonelier than ever. Her presence in their lives was convenient, not cherished. One evening, after a long exhausting day, Emma sat alone in her room. For the first time, she let herself cry, not because of what others did, but because of what she allowed. She realized that she had been silencing her own worth. And in that silence, she had lost herself. That night, one powerful question echoed in her mind: why am I fighting so hard to stay where I am not valued? It was the moment Emma's story began to change. Change never happens all at once. For Emma, it began with small, quiet acts of courage. After asking herself that life-altering question, why am I fighting so hard to stay where I am not valued? She decided to experiment with something she had never done before, saying no. The first time, it was uncomfortable. A friend called, asking her to drop everything and run an errand. Normally, Emma would have agreed instantly, even if it meant sacrificing her own plans. But this time, she paused. Her heart pounded, her palms grew sweaty, and finally, she said the word, "I can't today." There was silence on the other end. For a moment, Emma felt guilty, like she had failed. But later that night, she felt something even stronger, relief. That single "no" was the first crack in the wall she had built around herself. It wasn't just a refusal, it was a declaration that her time, her energy, and her needs mattered. She realized that she didn't always have to bend herself to fit into everyone else's lives. Next, she created space for herself. Instead of always rushing to meet demands, she carved out moments of solitude. She went for long walks without her phone. She journaled her thoughts she had buried for years under the weight of other people's expectations. She picked up painting again, a hobby she had abandoned in college because she didn't have time. Slowly, Emma began to reconnect with the parts of herself she had forgotten existed. And something incredible happened. The silence she once feared became a sanctuary. The quiet wasn't empty anymore, it was full of her own voice, her own ideas, her own dreams. She realized she had spent so many years drowning in the noise of others that she had forgotten the beauty of listening to herself. Not everyone liked this new Emma. Some friends complained that she had changed. Others tried to guilt her back into her old patterns. But Emma held firm. For the first time in her life, she wasn't terrified of losing people, she was terrified of losing herself again. Her breakthrough wasn't about pushing people away. It was about learning that peace, respect, and self-love are worth more than forced connections. And once she tasted that freedom, there was no going back. Most people fear being alone. They see it as a sign of weakness, failure, or rejection. But Emma discovered the opposite. Solitude was her turning point. It wasn't about loneliness, it was about rediscovering her own strength without the constant weight of others' expectations. Being alone gave Emma space to breathe, to think, and to heal. She no longer had to measure her worth by how much she could give to others. Instead, she began to ask, what do I want? What makes me happy? What kind of life do I deserve? These questions opened doors she didn't know existed. Alone, she realized she could finally set standards. She no longer tolerated half-efforts or one-sided relationships. When someone failed to respect her time or treated her like an option, she didn't chase after them anymore. She understood something powerful: if people truly valued her, she wouldn't have to beg for their attention. This new mindset transformed every area of her life. At work, she stopped volunteering for every extra task just to prove herself. Instead, she focused on her own growth and asked for opportunities that matched her goals. In friendships, she surrounded herself with people who uplifted her instead of draining her. And in her personal life, she discovered that being single wasn't a curse, it was a chance to build a strong foundation before letting anyone else in. But here's the deeper truth: being alone taught Emma resilience. She learned that silence could be healing, that solitude could be empowering, and that independence wasn't about pushing people away, it was about knowing you could stand strong even if no one was standing beside you. History is filled with examples of people who found greatness in solitude. Artists, leaders, thinkers, they all had seasons of isolation where they discovered their purpose. Emma realized she was no different. Her alone time became the workshop where she rebuilt her confidence, her identity, and her dreams. The world often tells us that we need constant connection, constant validation, constant company. But Emma's story proves that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step away from the noise and sit in the quiet. Because it's in that quiet that you finally hear the voice that matters most, your own. Emma's story is not just her story, it's a mirror for so many of us. How many times have we stayed in friendships that only drained us? How many times have we held on to relationships where we were invisible? How many times have we silenced our own needs because we feared being alone? The truth is, almost everyone has been Emma at some point. But here's the lesson her journey teaches us: being unappreciated is far lonelier than walking alone. We often confuse company with connection, but the two are not the same. Real connection uplifts you, energizes you, and makes you feel seen. Fake company drains you, belittles you, and leaves you feeling empty even when surrounded by people. Once you understand this, you begin to see solitude not as a punishment, but as a gift. Emma's turning point reminds us that walking away from places where you're undervalued doesn't mean you're selfish, it means you're self-aware. Protecting your peace is not weakness, it's wisdom. Choosing to step away from people who fail to see your worth isn't bitterness, it's bravery. Because when you settle for less, you're teaching others how to treat you. But when you stand firm in your value, you raise the standard, and the right people will meet it. Think about it, you only get one life. Why spend it begging for love, chasing validation, or proving your worth to people who are blind to it? Instead, imagine what happens when you choose yourself. You begin attracting relationships built on respect, opportunities that align with your passions, and environments where your light doesn't need to be dimmed to make others comfortable. Emma realized this, and so can you. You don't need to wait for a breaking point to take your power back. The moment you decide that you'd rather be alone than unappreciated, everything changes. The fear of solitude fades, and the fear of losing yourself becomes stronger. That's when you begin walking with courage, confidence, and clarity. So let this be your reminder today: you are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are not invisible. If people can't see your worth, that's their blindness, not your truth. And sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is to walk alone until you find the ones who see you clearly. Because the reality is simple, it's always better to walk alone in peace than to stay surrounded in neglect.